Okay, here we go. Thank you, Dr. Jordaan, for speaking with us. Today you have been celebrating 50 days until kickoff from the World Cup. What has been happening in South Africa to mark this special day?
Well, in line of this, with the spirit of the World Cup, we brought our people together. We had a gathering in one of our cities called Kimberley. It's not a host city, but it was part of the bid process, and eventually we had to remove the city. So we had a focus of the kind of World Cup that we want to have, of people gathering, music, song, dance, celebration, and it was just a wonderful and spectacular atmosphere that has been generated. The President of the country also came to join, address the crowd, and what we're focusing on now is for all South Africans to be good hosts for the World Cup.
With 50 days to go until kickoff at Soccer City when Bafana meets Mexico in Johannesburg in the opening game, you have repeatedly stated that South Africa is ready to welcome the world and host the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Hence, is it correct to say that most of the big pieces are in place, but not all the details have been completed or worked out yet?
Now everything is complete. What we are doing now around the stadium is beautification. Yesterday we had the official opening of the Oliver Tambo International Airport, which is the entry hub for all the teams and officials arriving in our country. And all of the stadiums are complete. All of the base camps are ready, the training grounds. And so what we are doing is just to put the final pieces together. The ticket sales are going very well. We sold 2.4 million tickets already, and we're looking forward to the event.
You have recently also said that South Africa is on a journey of perception and reality. Could you please explain this statement?
Well, this characterized, I think, the preparation of the World Cup. The first thing that was said is that we will not complete our stadiums. That was the perception that was created in the world. The fact is, and the reality is, that we did complete all of our stadiums 6 months before kickoff. Perception was that we would not have enough money to complete all of the infrastructure. The reality is that we did complete all of our infrastructure, and as an organizing committee we still have more than 60% of our budget left. So we did exercise extreme prudence and professional management of our resources. Perception was that this World Cup will lead to huge financial losses to FIFA. The reality is this is the most profitable World Cup for FIFA in FIFA's history. And so we can go on. The perception is that no one wants to buy the tickets for the World Cup. The reality is we have 2.9 million tickets, and we sold more than 2.4 million tickets. And we are now in the last phase of ticket sales, and it's going very well. Over the last 3 days, we sold 180,000 tickets. So it's always a contest between perception and the reality. And very often we feel that the perception is just not based on fact.
What you didn't mention is that this perception is obviously also linked to the safety and security problem in South Africa. South Africa is, excuse me, a nation where 50 persons get murdered a day. It has been demonized by the media across the world. South Africa has been labeled as the most dangerous country in the world. An English company produced stab-proof vests. The killing of the Togo team officials was directly linked to the capability of South Africa providing a safe World Cup, to name but a few examples of the criticism around the world. On the other hand, South Africa has hosted about 150 events, including the Rugby World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, the IPL, the Confederations Cup, and so on. and about 55,000 extra police officers have been recruited to guarantee the safety at the World Cup. With only 50 days to go, what are your thoughts on this issue, and how can you convince people at this stage, with all that has been said and all that has been done, that South Africa can provide a safe World Cup?
Well, look, safety and security is one of the key issues. The reality is, I think there are certain people that will never convince. Many of the things that you said are the things that are seriously problematic. For example, the attack on Togo. Now, Togo, as I have already said, is 3.5 hours by flight from Johannesburg, South Africa. And if that is the case, that if you live in Belgium and you fly 3.5 hours, you are beyond Russia.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, is it then fair that if there is an attack in Azerbaijan, that they must say, oh, now Belgium is not safe because there was an attack on somebody in Azerbaijan? It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But when you say, but Angola is an independent sovereign country, 3.5 hours from South Africa, somehow there is not that understanding. Now, to say South Africa is the most dangerous country on earth is frankly nonsense. Complete nonsense. The only place where you do not have a terror attack is Johannesburg, South Africa. In many of these cities in Europe, you had terror attacks, which, of course, from a preventative standpoint and security standpoint, is very, very important. And therefore, the word that you use, that we must not demonize any country or any people. The track record of this country, and last year we hosted the Confederations Cup. We did not have a single incident. But last year too, we hosted the British and Irish Lions Tour. We had 35,000 rugby supporters from England and the UK, not a single incident. We had the cricket tour of England in November to January 2009 to January 2010, not a single incident. We had the Indian Premier League. Because of the security concerns in India, they decided just to relocate the tournament in South Africa, simply because of South Africa's capability when it comes to events. South Africa hosted 147 major events without a single incident, and that includes the Rugby World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, the Athletics World Cup, the President's Cup in golf, the Confederations Cup, and all the tournaments that I've mentioned. So we can just say this is our track record, and we have also, on the 4th and 1st of March, had a security conference where the 32 head of police of each of the participating countries in this World Cup, and all of them approved and said this is probably the most comprehensive security plan for a major event that they've seen. And these are people from countries like Germany, like Interpol, England, and many of the other chiefs of police. So more than that, I don't think any organizing committee can be asked to do more. Our country has invested 1.3 billion rand in safety and security, has trained more than, for this World Cup, 100,000 policemen, and all the other things we think is in place. But security in this world is a very uncertain world, and therefore every country, whether it is South Africa or Belgium or England or Spain or any other, or the United States or any other countries, must take security seriously, especially in the global environment in which we live.
So we both agree that South Africa has done everything possible to this issue, to the safety and security problem. Hypothetical question. Al-Qaeda recently stated on one of the websites on the World Wide Web that they would try and attack the England-United States game in Rustenburg. Now, merely hypothetical, imagine the worst case scenario and this happens. What would happen to the World Cup and how would South Africa handle such a situation?
No. There was no organizing committee that you would put hypothetical questions like that. Why must we answer hypothetical questions? The fact of the matter is the terror attack was in London, in Madrid. That's where it happened.
Mm-hmm.
South Africa. And you see, how did you authenticate that in fact comes from Al-Qaeda?
Mm-hmm. Away from the safety and security problem, which has been covered widely enough by the media, another...
The safety and security problem is how you described it.
Mm-hmm.
We described it as our track record is 100% safety over 147 major events. It's our track record.
Yes, I can perfectly believe that, but on the other hand, I believe you can also understand that people are worried as South Africa has a high crime rate and so on. So it's not...
It does not.
Yes, that's correct, but...
The country does not have crime. No, I think, again, you see, people cannot just say, let me give you the facts. The fact is that this country now is moving towards 11 million tourists a year.
Mm-hmm.
That means that almost on average we have 1 million tourists a year into South Africa. 1 million tourists into South Africa per month.
Mm-hmm.
To have 11 million tourists a year. Now, we are not going to have 1 million visitors into South Africa for this World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore the World Cup, and when fans come, they are just tourists by another name.
Mm-hmm.
For the purpose of the World Cup, we call them football fans. But if they come without the World Cup, they are tourists. But you have to do the same. You have to provide accommodation, transportation. You have to safeguard them. Otherwise, this country will not see a 1 million year-on-year tourists increase into the country.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the facts.
Yes, I totally agree with you, but you must understand that with the World Cup and those football fans coming, the world will be watching your every move, and that's why I guess so many people are interested in this so-called safety and security problem. But let's move away from this, well, not problem, but from this concern. Another issue has been the tickets, the sales of tickets. You have sold 2.4 million tickets, as you just mentioned a few moments ago. You opened the over-the-counter sales last Thursday, I believe. And you sold 180,000 tickets in the meantime, which is a very big success, I would say. How will you tackle the problem of selling tickets for less popular games, such as, I can imagine, Algeria, Slovenia, or Honduras, Chile? I guess that those games will attract less interested fans and Africans or foreigners wanting to see those games. So how will you tackle the problem of selling tickets for the less popular games? Because games like England, Brazil, Italy, Germany, the final, the opening game, semi-finals, those are easy tickets to sell, no?
Well, I think that is a challenge, and it's not a challenge just for South Africa. It's been a challenge in Germany, in Korea, Japan, in France 98, and the United States 1994. And we clearly want to have a position that we have 100% sale of tickets for every match. And so we have worked with the host city and therefore say that if you support the match, you also support the whole city. And it is the full stadium. It is the vibrancy inside that stadium that will create a very positive impression about your city. And so when you sit there in Brussels and you watch the Uruguay or North Korea match in a full stadium in one of the cities, it is that image that will create the lasting impression. And what we want out of this World Cup is returning tourists. We want 15 million tourists by 2014. And so we're saying to the whole city, it is in your interest that you make sure that the people of your city buy those tickets for the stadiums, and that it's in your interest to have every match played in your city is played in front of a full stadium. And we have already seen responses from the people of the cities at how they rallied to, one, support the match, but two, to support the whole city and to support the event as a whole. And that message is going through, and we've seen quite positive responses from the people of our country.
If I'm not mistaken, about more than 1 million South Africans until now have bought their tickets for the World Cup. You have always said that each South African should play his part to make this World Cup the best one ever. Do you feel that enthusiasm now is at a high enough level within the host nation?
Yes, absolutely. And even in the non-host cities. I'm in Kimberley now. We had decided to host the 50-day celebration and the banquet tonight in Kimberley. And the spirit of the people in the city here, and the way they turned out since this morning 6 o'clock, with drums and floats and celebration and joy, and looking forward to the event. I have no doubt that this event will be a huge success. In the first place, because South Africa has embraced the event, and South Africans want to look forward to welcome the world to our country.
Referring to the ticket sales, football fans across the African continent have found it difficult to buy their tickets due to the internet process and the lack of flights to Johannesburg. Measures have been implemented to ease this process, but would you say these measures have come a little too late with, for example, Botswana, until now being the country in Africa with the most tickets acquired for residents, just about 2,000 tickets acquired in Botswana?
Yes, we said perhaps FIFA should look again and look at developing countries, and that's the matter that we made. But in developing countries, internet access is not available to many of the football fans, both in our country and the African continent, and therefore their experience of buying a ticket is the over-the-counter sale. And we have seen the tremendous response from the people after the introduction of the over-the-counter sales. But perhaps going into Brazil, more research must be done so that there's an earlier introduction to over-the-counter sales.
Another topic is the transport system. It is known that the public transport system across South Africa might struggle to see to the needs of all those football fans that will descend upon South Africa during the tournament. There were problems in finishing the Gauteng train on time. The bus and taxi system does not seem up to date, and there might be a lack of internal flights during the tournament. How are you tackling this problem at this stage?
Well, the description is not correct. Yesterday, let me start with the Gauteng. Yesterday, the journalists had their first ride on the Gauteng, and the train arrived at the airport, and they were simply amazed at the quality and the efficiency of how they were moved from the Sandton area into the airport in Johannesburg from the Marlborough station. So that is on track. Secondly, last night I came here by train.
Mm-hmm.
We took a train with a local and foreign journalists into Kimberley to give them a train experience. And all of them were very, very impressed with the quality of the service, the quality and the comfort that the train provided until we arrived here. And of course, we have buses. We have more than 570 buses that has been contracted for the event. So I think after yesterday spending the whole day to focus just on the transport solution, that many of the journalists who were present now have the full picture of how we can move the fans. And I think that having now been given the detail of the transport plan, both taxis, buses, trains, and aircraft, I think there's a much better understanding of how we're going to move the teams and the people in the country.
Mm-hmm. Let's focus a bit on the football itself. The host nation Bafana did not get a favorable draw, being paired with Mexico and two former world champions Uruguay and France. How important is it for South Africa and the tournament itself in general to progress beyond the group stage?
Well, for the host nation, very, very important. If you look at the Euro finals in 2000.
Yes, in Belgium and the Netherlands, yes.
Belgium and the Netherlands. And how in the Netherlands, because the team went into the final stages, and of course they lost in a penalty shootout in the semi-final, and it was France and Italy in the final. But you saw the impact of the performance on the team on the host nation. If you look at the 2008 Euro finals in Austria and Switzerland, both Austria and Switzerland dropped out in the first round. And there was no atmosphere by the time the final was played in Austria and Vienna. So it has a huge impact. Therefore, we know Bafana must perform. They are in Germany at the moment, preparing. They spent almost a month in Brazil. They're going to spend a few weeks in Germany. So we hope that the team will have a better level of preparedness and readiness for the tournament. But we also said this is an African World Cup, and we want our people to support not just Bafana, but all the African teams. As we've seen in the Confederations Cup, South Africans supported Egypt. And in the match Egypt versus Italy, where Egypt managed to beat Italy, it was the South Africans who rallied behind that Egyptian team. And we expect the same. But to come back to your question, it's very, very important that the host nations teams must perform. We've seen that in France in '98, we saw Korea, Japan, particularly Korea, went to the semi-final in 2002. We saw Germany in 2006. Going to the semi-final, and so we hope that our team will get out of this difficult group and into the second round of the tournament.
Yes, when South Africa was awarded the 2010 FIFA World Cup, it was said there would be a creation of a so-called effective talent identification program that would eventually develop a competitive Bafana team for the World Cup. With a 1-1 draw against Namibia and a goalless draw against Brazilian club team Cruzeiro in recent outings, little of that seems to have become a reality. Carlos Alberto Parreira, the coach of Bafana, also complained a few days ago that his team didn't get high-quality opponents in friendlies. What are your thoughts on Group A as a football lover and not in your function as CEO?
Well, I think Group A, as you said, we are high-quality teams. I don't think that you can write off France. That mistake was made in the 2006 World Cup. When France arrived to the World Cup in 2006, many people said, well, the team now is old, the team won't progress into the final stages, and France made it to the final. Some of those players are still around, and there are many young, exciting players in the French team. And then you have Uruguay is always a very good team, very good pedigree, and Mexico that I think is one of the most exciting teams in this World Cup. We've seen Mexico in recent outings, how they perform. So it's going to be tough. There's no doubt about that. But we hope we'll get through. Decisive match, of course, in the opening match against Mexico at Soccer City. There were 87,000 fans there. Hope that the majority will be for Bafana. and that kind of performance can really make a difference to the psychological makeup of the team and perhaps give them the energy and the belief to do better in the next round of matches. But it's going to be tough. We have to admit that.
Yes, I agree. It's indeed going to be tough. If South Africa can make it beyond the group stages, another African team may carry the flag and hopes of the African continent. As you mentioned, it is also an African World Cup. Do you feel that this time around an African country might progress beyond the quarterfinals or even go on to win the World Cup? Most notably, one can imagine Ivory Coast being a very strong team.
Yeah, I think we have seen improved performances. If you look at 2008, the Beijing Olympics, we had Nigeria there doing very well and getting into the final. In the Under-20 World Cup in 2009, Ghana won the Under-20 World Cup. So in those teams, you have the quality. And then, as you say, Cote d'Ivoire has some extraordinary players, world-class players. So we have high-quality teams coming from the African continent into the World Cup. And we just hope that those teams will perform. And certainly an African team in the final, in my view, is not out of the question.
Final question on the football itself. Brazil and Spain are sky-high favorites to win the World Cup. Who else is on your list as favorites?
It's going to be tough. Look, let me talk about sky-high favorites. In 2002 in Korea, Japan, France was the sky-high favorite, having won the 1998 World Cup. Having won the Euro finals in 2000, France went to, and also doing well in the 2001 Confederations Cup. Having then been one of the sky-high favorites, France dropped out in the first round in 2002. In 2006 World Cup in Germany, Brazil went as sky-high favorites. They had just won in 2005. They wiped out Argentina in the final. And the whole world was convinced the others will turn up. There's only one team that will compete for the trophy, and that is a team that included Ronaldo, Kaká, Ronaldinho, Adriano, Cafu, Roberto Carlos,
Robinho,
and so on and so on. Robinho and so on and so on. The list is just endless. And then in the final you have Italy and you have France. None of the two was regarded as favorites, for getting sky-high favorites. So there are so many teams. Yes, there's Brazil. Yes, there's Spain. But also there is teams that you must not write off, like Italy, like Germany. Always a good bet for a World Cup. And then you have the African teams, as I said earlier, that I think may be in there. And then you have an Argentina team with a player called Messi, that also can surprise. I think some of the Eastern European teams may surprise. Serbia, one must not try to. So it's going to be a very, very tough World Cup, unpredictable World Cup. And I just hope that some of your Sky favorites is in the final stages of the World Cup.
Mhm. Yes, it's going to be a very competitive World Cup. When it all kicks off at Soccer City, June 11th, 87,000 blowing horns will be making an incredible noise. What is your reaction to those TV viewers across the globe and football fans that can't stand the noise of the vuvuzela? Yes, it is part of South African football culture, but some would say the noise is unbearable.
Well, I think from a television point of view, I'm sure there's a technical solution to deal with the noise levels if you broadcast. I think in the stadium, it's very difficult because, I have been in Mexico City, for example, in the Azteca Stadium. They don't have the vuvuzela there. But the noise levels were such that you cannot have a conversation in the Azteca Stadium once the fans start making a noise. So I think making noise, singing, shouting, screaming is part of a football match. It's just the level of noise, whether you make it a higher pitch with your voice or with a vuvuzela, but in Africa, noise is synonymous with football.
As you mentioned during the tournament that South Africa will be the most profitable World Cup ever. South Africa will set a record revenue of around 3.5 billion US dollar, which is an increase of 900 million US dollar from the previous 2006 World Cup in Germany. In what way will South Africa be a different nation in economic terms after the World Cup?
Well, we have just received the latest version of the economic impact assessment of the World Cup in South Africa. And overall, it's very positive. First of all, the creation of 280,000 jobs, contribution of more than 5% to the GDP, and then, of course, the tickets are not sold out yet, but it is estimated that the economic impact will be close to 30 billion rand on the South African economy. But I think once we have sold every single ticket, we'll have a good assessment of how close we are to those figures that is now contained in research findings around the economic impact on our country. But what is important for us, it's about nation building. It's about generating a feeling of unity among South Africans, of all of us focusing on being good hosts to the world and making sure that the world leaves our country with a clear understanding that we have the capacity, we have the will to succeed. We've worked hard to put all the infrastructure in place, and that this event will be broadcast in high definition television. There will be mobile TV in the country, and all of these things convinces the world that this is a place that you must visit. They have increase in returning tourists, and that is seen as a destination of investment, trade, and business.
Am I correct in saying that you believe that economic growth is obviously important, the economic impact is important, but from hearing your answer, that the creation of a single nation is as important as the financial reward?
Yes, absolutely. I think we have seen that even in countries where you have economic growth, if there is not a sense of a single nation or a single vision that drives a nation, you will have problems, and we do have problems. You have just referred to the issue of Cabinda, where oil was discovered, but there is a separatist movement there, and other countries where you have separatist movements. It is those kind of issues that you prevent by presenting to the nation projects that bind them, that they can identify with and share in. And that is what the World Cup can do for our country.
Yes, economic growth and uniting the world. Do you feel that the World Cup, next to the abolishment of apartheid, might be the biggest historic moment in South African history? What one could call a defining moment in your history?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, we have a number of defining moments that actually propels the history of our country. The first came in 1990, when Nelson Mandela walked out of prison. The second in 1994, when we all went to vote for the first time in our lives. And now in 2010, certainly a defining moment of huge importance and impact on what will happen in the country over the next 10 years.
On a more personal note, since September 16, 1994, for an incredible 16 years, you have been telling the world that South Africa can deliver a World Cup. During your childhood, you were not allowed to stand up on the green grass of the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Port Elizabeth, although you were born just down the road. This has now become a World Cup venue. You fought apartheid, you were an MP, you were the CEO of the South African Football Federation, you led the bid for the Cape Town 2004 Olympic Games, and you led the bid for the 2006 World Cup, and so on and so on. Is it correct to say...
Well informed.
Is it correct...
Well informed.
Is it correct to say that the mix of politics, sports and race are Dr. Jordaan's eternal struggle?
Well, we always understood that we had to defeat apartheid because apartheid was pervasive, touched everything, from education, religion, sport, everything. And so recognize that specifically sport can become the glue to bind our nation. And that major events like the World Cup can instill a sense of pride and patriotism that is necessary to face any other challenge. Because it is only when we are united with shared goals and shared values, when there's social cohesion in society, then we can truly make progress. And we've seen this in many societies. I was in Russia in 1990 after Glasnost and Perestroika. In 1990 when the wall came down in Germany. And in spite of the fact that the wall was destroyed, you still had, without the wall, a very strong sense amongst the Germans about being an East German versus being a West German. So still, not in geographic terms, but psychologically, philosophically, still two German nations. And the World Cup in Germany dealt with that issue in a significant way. Because when you went to Nuremberg and to the east, you saw the German flag draping from houses and cars and an office block. And it is when you deal with those moments, then you also deal with your past, a divided past of Germany and a divided past of South Africa. So I think that 2010 certainly will further cement the hard work and sacrifices for so many people over so many years.
You are traveling the world, you are a very busy person, and as days pass, I can well imagine that you may not realize that the event for which you have worked 16 years is upon our doorsteps. What do you think will your emotions be July 11th when the captain of the winning team lifts the World Cup and the tournament itself will have come to an end?
You know, you are never quite ready for these moments when it arrives. You know, we struggled long and hard to say Mandela must be freed. But when the day came and Mandela walked out of that prison cell, yes, it was a sense of achievement, that our struggle was not in vain, that we took the first step at liberation and democracy. It is that sense that after more than 10 years, in 2004, that eventually were given the right to host the World Cup. And I was there with Mandela when he lifted the trophy. I think it is that kind of moment. And also in 1994, I was a member of Parliament. When I walked into that parliamentary chamber for the first time and look around and say, this Parliament, they made all the apartheid laws. And now we have the responsibility to make laws that is humane, just and fair, and work on the basis that every human being has equal worth. It is just those special moments that you call defining moments. And so on the 11th of July, when the trophy is handed over, I think that we will sit back and say this was an incredible journey of doubt, of mistrust, of distortions, of pain, of setbacks, of hope and hopelessness, and despair and hope again. And eventually we have delivered Africa's first World Cup in more than 100 years of world football. And no one must say that Africa is not worthy or Africa should wait 100 years again to host a major event on African soil.
Penultimate question, what will the legacy for South Africa and the African continent of this World Cup be, do you think?
I think it is also about Africa's ability to deliver. It's about Africa's reputation, the kind of things that you said, and the doubt that has been cast. At the end of the day, it is about the reputation of our country and our continent, and how you manage that reputation. We said we will deliver whatever we promise. The stadiums, the airports, the roads, the transport, the security, everything, we will deliver. The world said, no, you better get a plan B. Well, I think the world will now say we should trust them. We should accept their word. They promise they have delivered. They did not fail us once. And I think that's an important statement. Because reputation also is a competitive advantage. You will not engage in business with somebody that you fundamentally mistrust. And so it is our hope that this World Cup will give the world an opportunity to look at Africa again and look at Africa differently and understand Africa differently and understand also that human achievement, human desire, and human excellence is not the domain of one continent. It's not the ambition of one continent, but all of us, regardless of which continent and country, we have the same ambition, to succeed in life and to make society better.
And finally, thank you for your thoughts on that. Finally, I mentioned what I called Dr. Jordaan's eternal struggle, referring to politics, sports, and the race. What will Dr. Jordaan do after the World Cup? For the first time in a very long time, you will be without a job. Perhaps try and get the Olympics to the African continent?
I don't know. My life has been driven by struggles. First the struggle to end apartheid, then the struggle to transform apartheid laws in government, then the struggle to bring the World Cup. Then even delivering and organizing the World Cup became a struggle on its own. I think that getting the Olympics to the African continent will also be another struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I will, in spirit, in philosophy, and in heart, support it. Whether I will lead it, that is a question that I cannot answer. I know I'll be very, very tired on the 11th of July.
I believe so.
I'd like to rest and reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And then think again.
Okay. Mr. Jordaan, thank you very much for taking our questions.